everyone has a great sales pitch, but at the end of the day, you need to see some type of outcome that the advertiser wants. And if it's an upper funnel campaign, they want a brand outcome. If it's a mid funnel campaign, they want a behavioral outcome. If it's a lower funnel campaign, they want a business outcome.
Does smart contextual data in CTV produce insane results? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds, the podcast for growth marketers. My name is John Koetsier. Okay, we all know CTV is growing. AVOD is off the charts, exploding in the US, UK, Germany, India, Korea, many other countries. I just wrote about it on the Singular blog. But how can you target ads on CTV and make them crazy performant? We're talking today to the CEO of Upwave, who says there's a way to get far better results. His name is Chris Kelly, and he's a returning Growth Masterminds guest. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, John, for having me again. Glad to be back.
You must have done well the first time. Otherwise, you know, no chance, right?
3 more till I get the jacket. Yeah,
exactly. Well, 7, then you get the jacket. I don't know if it's green, maybe it's purple. We'll
pick any color. Yeah.
Exactly. So you just released a report. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we released a report in collaboration with our friends at Iris TV. Iris TV is a contextual data and content data marketplace that is owned by Viant. And we've been lucky to be the measurement partner for Iris TV for a while, and lucky to be the measurement partner for Viant, their parent company, for a while. So we see a lot of interesting data on what works for brand building, because Upwave is brought in to show the brand outcomes on campaigns, whether they're run on CTV or linear or digital or streaming audio, whatever channel you're running on. You want to understand the brand outcome, not the behavioral outcome or business outcome, but the upper funnel brand outcome on that campaign. And Iris has a lot of measurement for video. This specific case study, we looked at CTV and answered a question we both got asked by advertisers a lot, which was, does contextual targeting help build brands on CTV? So that was the question at hand.
So talk about what that means, contextual targeting. So if I'm on the web, I kind of know what contextual targeting means, right? I know the content of this text, and I can target an ad that relates to that text. It's about camping. Here's my tent. There we go. Boom, ad done. Simple, right? If it's on mobile, it's a little more challenging. I can look at the genre of the app. I can look at what the app does, app description. Maybe I have some freaky science to even know what's on particular screens in apps, that sort of thing, but maybe not. And so I know somewhat how to target there. Now you're talking about streaming, and so you kind of need tech that knows what's going on, what's happening. Tell us what that looks like in your world.
Yeah, and I'll speak at the high level, since we're the ones measuring the effect.
No, we want the details, like right down to the bits.
Right down to, just to the code. Yeah. So where I'm a layperson in contextual targeting, being the measurement expert on the sideline that's measuring whether the contextual targeting is effective. But the broad strokes, I'm sure a lot of your audience knows, is understanding what's actually going on in the show. So you're not just in the content that the consumer is viewing, not just saying this household is household XYZ and they did behavior ABC, so we're going to target an ad based on that behavior, or target ad based on some demographic trait that we know about the household through various means, but actually running targeting based on what they're actually watching, the content of what it is. And that's a common thing we get asked as the measurement partner brought in to measure all types of targeting is, was this effective? And if marketers are paying a premium to do any type of targeting, whatever the targeting methodology is, they want to know that it's building their brand and driving the outcome that they want to measure. So that's why this is interesting to look at, kind of saying, what do the numbers say? And not just believing the sales pitches that are out there, but saying, what do the numbers say in terms of which brand KPIs are being lifted and which ones are not?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I guess my question was around, how does that contextual targeting happen? So you talked about having some maybe DMA information, that sort of stuff, but also information about what's going on in a video, right? And I know you're not Iris TV or anything like that, but let's say you're watching streaming and it's Seinfeld, or I don't know, it's something else, some other TV show or some telenovela or something like that. Can you target an ad to the context and the content of that show?
The broad strokes are what we both been mentioning. It's about understanding kind of what's on the screen And are you watching sports content? Are you watching news? Are you watching the telenovela, the example you mentioned? In some cases, I believe get down to more granular detail than this genre, and getting into kind of what's happening on the screen. I know there's talk of this AI advancing what we can understand about a video. So in the future, I think the category will move towards kind of, do we understand emotions on the screen? But again, not being an expert on contextual targeting, I'll leave that for the experts to chime in the comments of your show.
So in terms of the measurement, then what you said in the report, hey, you've got a 2x lift in awareness, you got a 3x lift in ad recall, you got a 5x lift in favorability. That all sounds really, really good, and that's a result of being able to accurately target.
That's right. So yeah, what we were asked to do is look at what's the actual brand outcome you're getting on a campaign that uses this type of targeting. Because again, everyone has a great sales pitch, but at the end of the day, you need to see some type of outcome that the advertiser wants. And if it's an upper funnel campaign, they want a brand outcome. If it's a mid funnel campaign, they want a behavioral outcome. If it's a lower funnel campaign, they want a business outcome. So we get brought in to measure the first of those, the brand outcomes. So what we're doing is looking at the exposure data to understand which households in a privacy friendly way are tracking which households are exposed to the ads, and understanding the change in the brand KPI. So things like awareness, ad recall, favorability, in some cases consideration, purchase intent, purchase propensity, which is a proprietary Upwave KPI. So those are the types of brand metrics that we're looking at, the type of KPIs that an Upwave dashboard would typically show a marketer or a media seller. And in this case, we looked at the case study we published with Carl's Jr., and it was looking at the success of the contextual targeting. And it was really fantastic to look at over 90% of campaigns for the industry, because Upwave has AI-enabled norms that lets you look at the specific industry. And in that case, you can see that they beat over 90% of campaigns in the specific industry, in the fast food and quick serve industry, were beat for awareness and consideration, and over 99% for ad recall. So that means this Carl's Jr. campaign that used Iris TV for contextual targeting beat 99% of campaigns that we had measured in QSR and fast food, which is fascinating. And taking a step back, Upwave also has norms that are also powered by our AI agent bays that are around tactics. So not just the industry you're in, but actually looking at the tactic. And CTV we have are able to classify as a tactic. And in that case, looking at a handful of campaigns that were measured, that Upwave measured for Iris, that's where we saw those numbers you mentioned. It was pretty outstanding to have a double the lift in awareness versus the norms, triple the lift in ad recall versus the norms, 5x, which is just crushing it, the lift in favorability versus our norms for CTV. And all these norms are based on thousands of campaigns that Upwave has measured. And that's something that is enough of a data set that when you see such outperformance, it's pretty powerful statement.
It's crazy. I mean, because you see marketers working all the time on optimizing their campaigns, right? And they're fighting tooth and nail to get a 3% lift or a 2% lift or a 5% lift, or, they knocked it out of the park. It's 20% better, right? And you're talking 2x, 200%, 3x, 300%, 5x, you're talking massive jumps here. That's really, really, really impressive. And so I guess that's the power of having good contextual targeting. More recall, essentially, more relevance. Makes a lot of sense. Now, a performance marketer will come to you and say, okay, hey, great, that's wonderful. You got all these brand outcomes, and yay, here's your gold star. What do you say to that performance marketer when he or she asks about sales or downloads or signups?
Yeah, we love that question. And as you imagine, we get it a fair amount. So we take a step back and say, a lot of this is inspired by our customers. We are fortunate to serve a lot of the world's best brand builders. And I'll use an analogy in a minute that we have to give a shout out to Pierre Bouvard over at Westward one of the best minds in the industry on measuring the effectiveness of brand advertising. So he gave me an analogy I share. But basically, we first say, let's understand what we're saying about what advertising means as a function. It's really two different business functions you're doing. You're generating future demand and you're capturing existing demand when you advertise. So if you do nothing but capture existing demand, then you're actually just kind of draining your funnel and you're not actually growing the business. So you have to think of using brand advertising to generate future demand and then use performance marketing DR to capture existing demand. And the analogy from Pierre that I mentioned, we need to give the shout out to, is around an apple orchard. And it's this idea of in an app, imagine if you ran an apple orchard, you'd have to both plant seeds and pick apples because, right, you might say, well, the point of an orchard is to simply to generate apples. So how many apples did we generate yesterday? But if all you did with your time is pick apples off the trees, then you're not going to grow. You're limited to the trees you have. And of course, trees die just like customers churn. You have to plant new trees and you have to plant new seeds. And of course, if you plant seeds, you should do that scientifically. You shouldn't just throw seeds and assume it worked. You should, and I'm not a tree expert, so there'll be limits to how far I can take this analogy, but I'm sure your audience gets the point that you have to be scientific about measuring where do I put the seeds, the pH of the soil, the temperature, the water levels, and that's what we believe, that just like performance marketers can be very scientific about picking apples. They know exactly how many apples they picked yesterday. Brand marketers can also be scientific about planting seeds. They can know exactly how many seeds did I plant and did they work and when they're going to pay off. And that's our view. That's why we say at Upwave, our mission is to bring science to the top of the funnel, because we think you shouldn't just randomly throw seeds around and hope that they grow into apple trees, or in this case, customers in a few years. You should be scientific about it. You should have a process. You should measure. You should be able to make real-time changes. So that's the fun conversations we get into with performance branders who, as you say, come to us and say, show me the immediate downloads, the immediate sales in the last 2 days. And that those conversations have led to this rise of what we've heard McKinsey call performance branding, which is not simply mashing together performance techniques and brand techniques. It's saying, how do you put a performance lens on brand building? Meaning, how do you make daily adjustments to your brand campaign? How do you get data that lets you learn and improve every day, and turn the knobs every day? Just like in a performance campaign, of course, for the last 2 decades, you could turn the knobs every day in your direct response campaign. Brand campaigns obviously were passive, kind of about passive branding, not performance branding. So we think this is a good example leading the shift to performance branding and saying, don't be passive. Don't just run your ad campaigns and hope you built your brand. Lean into this and be as hands on keyboard every day as a performance marketer, even though it's an upper funnel campaign that is generating future demand.
So that analogy makes sense to me. I like it. I do wonder, and I have some questions about it, and maybe we can explore it a little bit. Does it make more sense for larger companies and smaller companies? Can smaller companies just assume that demand is sort of there and happening and growing and maybe being fed by larger companies and they can just tap into it? That's one question. The other question is, if you are planting seeds, you know how many trees you've planted. You know what you expect to harvest from them. I guess, what's the math that connects performance branding with performance marketing?
Yeah, two great threads. So on your first piece, yes, there is a bias of brand marketing value to larger enterprises just for the scale factor. If you think of the channels that historically have worked, is when you say, I can make an investment in creative and positioning and storytelling that I can bring to a large enough audience. And until recently, it almost wasn't even feasible to get on TV, get on the big screen if you're a local shop. Now, that's changing. There's been exciting announcements and a slew of announcements in the last few years of both startups and bigger companies getting into this performance TV pace and trying to get the local pizza shop to be able to afford TV by whipping out their credit card, which is exciting to watch. And we're fortunate to be a measurement partner of a few of those as well. So that's changing. But yes, historically, there's a bias towards that. And I think it really comes down to when the marketer is ready to be a brand builder. Certainly, you talk to a lot of local business owners that they don't necessarily have the luxury yet of thinking of brand. They may just be getting the business off the ground and don't have any money to spend on brand building yet. So they're going to have to take more guerrilla marketing tactics to get early customers.
And just to interject there for half a second, the funny thing is that even when you're not building brand, you're building brand. Because everything you do builds brand.
Brand is more than just advertising.
Maybe bad or maybe good, but you're doing something.
You're doing so, your brand. Yeah, your brand is more than your advertising. Advertising is a phenomenal way and approach to influence and spread and curate your brand. But your brand exists whether you like it or not. So you're exactly right. A local pizza shop has a brand. The brand may only be in a 7-block radius of a pizza shop, but they have a brand. So and Upwave doesn't work generally with local businesses and not too many regional businesses. Our technology is really fine tuned for national brand builders. But we don't certainly at all look down on local businesses or think they're doing it wrong. It's just if they're at a stage they don't yet have the resources to invest in brand or the timeline or have the training to do that, right? If just there are people who spend 2 decades learning how to be proficient in brand building, so to expect a local pizza shop to be world class at it as someone at Procter & Gamble overnight is not reasonable. They're incredibly good at starting a business and serving customers and making pizza. They may not be great at being a brand builder, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't be, and it doesn't mean the ecosystem shouldn't serve them. So we're glad to see a lot of these performance TV platforms pop up. And as it evolves, we would love to move our measurement downstream. Right now, we are not helpful to a local pizza shop if they call us. We're helpful to the national pizza chain that calls us. But that's not a religious view we have. As the world changes and more of these brand building technologies make their way to small businesses, we're certainly happy to be able to serve them one day.
Yeah. So the second part of my question, and I committed a cardinal sin in asking 2 questions at the same time.
I already forgot.
Bad idea. But hey, they were on my mind.
I laid the host commandments. I won't report you.
Thank you. No happy face after this podcast recording. So the second part is, what's the math that connects performance brand with direct performance or performance marketing?
Yeah, so it's really we've done this a few times, and right now the answer exists in case studies more than a productized dashboard. I'd be the first to admit, but I'd argue Upwave is ahead of the rest of the measurement industry in terms of having to answer this question. Which I think you're getting around the holy grail of brand marketing is to know how a investment in brand today leads to improvement in customer lifetime value tomorrow. Because I tell you, it's not just sales. Sales is one way you improve, like initial sale, right? It could be, you could have someone who doesn't churn. You could have someone who upsells. You could have someone who tells their friends and takes referral action. There's a lot of ways you actually generate customer lifetime value and economic value besides just saying, did this person walk in the store and buy the potato chips? So you have to take a more holistic view and look at overall sales activity. But what we've done so far is look at how do you find which upper funnel metrics you can show have at least a strong correlation, a time shifting correlation to sales data. So what we've done a few times is look at categories with things like shampoo and soap, and we can actually graph over time how the brand metrics are changing, whether that's as tippy top of the funnel from awareness to as lower down the funnel towards things like purchase propensity, that the proprietary Upwave metric that I mentioned, or things in between like ad recall or favorability. You can track those metrics over time. And then you can, if you get your hands on sales data, which we don't sell SalesIft or MMM, so we don't by default have sales data, but it's often provided to us by customers or through partners for experimentation. And you can see if you time shift the brand metrics changing, can you see a correlation to a change in sales? And we have a white paper we put out this with our friends at Ibotta, which has interesting purchase data a couple years ago. We can include in the show notes for your listeners to check out because we're proud of that work. And that actually shows when I have an improvement in purchase propensity, purchase consideration, favorability, whatever the primary metric you're tracking is. Does it actually mean, can I show that there's a time shifted change in sales? And from what our work so far has shown, yes. It almost is too good to be true that the few categories we've tested have shown a very high correlation in the analysis. And it's something like, I think it was 3 months for beer and 6 months for soap, meaning you can't shift your beer market share overnight, but you can shift it within 3 months by investing in your brand. You can't shift your shampoo market share overnight, but you can shift it within 6 months by building your brand. And of course, it's different by category. And something like a luxury watch that might be 2 years or longer, right? If you want to convince me to buy a luxury watch that's an aspirational purchase for me, I'm not going to look at an ad and click on and buy it. So that would be silly to think you don't need to plant any apple trees in that scenario, right?
Yes.
You need to plant the seed today, or it may, in some cases, a luxury automobile. Maybe it's 5 years. I may not buy a car for 5 years, but I may start thinking today of which luxury automobile or which which economical model is the right fit for me. So that's the current way we do it. It's interesting. A lot of people assume it's about tracking an individual consumer through the funnel, which from they saw the ad and then 6 years later they bought it, which um, isn't right now feasible for a variety of technological and methodological and privacy reasons. And so I don't think as an industry we should aim to be tracking every single person from seeing an ad to buying their BMW in 6 years.
Yeah.
Certainly, technologies like clean rooms and other privacy enhancing technologies make it easier. But this is not about tracking every single person. It's about understanding how a change in a brand metric led to a change in market share. And
I like that approach. I like that approach, and it intuitively makes sense, right? And yeah, it also intuitively makes sense that I'm not going to click on an ad and buy a car.
yeah, correct.
I mean,
or a watch,
if
yeah,
I did, that's an astonishing accident. That's the culmination of months, probably, of research and exposure and thinking and talking to people. And boom, then this ad caught me at the right moment in time and clicked it. And there I go. I bought the 500,000. Sorry, 500,000. I'm not in that market. $50,000 car, right? So that makes a ton of sense. And that is interesting. I mean, there's MMM-ish stuff in what you're saying, but also some level of greater simplicity, right? I'm tracking these brand metrics, which ones correlate as they go up or as they go down with future sales over 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And then I know if I can positively impact those ones, then I have a good shot, if history repeats, and it often does, at improving these ones, the sales. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to build on your car example because 100% agree. You generally don't click on a banner ad for a car and buy it. In many cases, you cannot buy a
It's
car
an
online.
in-app purchase. No.
It's easy to understand that. However, I think there's actually this misconception that the same behavior actually happens even on things that you can buy online.
Yes.
So just because you can click to buy doesn't mean that last ad was the thing that caused you to buy, right? You could have been driven down the funnel by other examples, and then you went to you bought it. That last ad picked the apple. It captured the demand, to use our previous analogy. My favorite story here is from a friend who ran a performance agency, and it was working with a big brand that was running a lot of performance ads with them, and it was kind of a not a rideshare service, but in the general rideshare type economy, the sharing economy. Remember that big from the 2010s, and he saw all the numbers are showing Facebook that this branch put all their money towards Facebook because you simply looked like where were people clicking to sign up for it. It was from Facebook. And then he was curious about this, and then a bunch of man on the street research and started talking to the users and couriers in this service and asking a bunch of them, hey, well, how did you sign up? And none of them said Facebook. They all said a friend. The radio ads, the TV ads, I think, and of his sample size of a couple dozen, God's people, and no one was saying Facebook. And we asked, well, did you engage with Facebook? Oh yeah, maybe I saw like the 5% off, or maybe that's where I finally did it. But I did it because my friend John told me about it. And then I heard on the radio, then I saw on TV. And of course, like in a performance mindset, you're doing nothing but giving credit to the last touch and saying, oh, that's let's just put money more in there. Let's pick more apples. But of course, if you don't have those strong TV ads, those strong radio ads, those strong streaming audio ads, that strong word of mouth, those people aren't signing up. So just because you can click to buy doesn't mean the click is why you bought.
Exactly. It's the proximate thing. It's the straw that tips, that breaks the back. It's the last thing.
Exactly,
I was thinking about that anyways. Oh, okay, fine. Oh, $5 off or 20% off or whatever. There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think on you and I have talked before. I forget if it was in our last recording about the famous anecdote and the parable of the pizza coupons, where they say the apocryphal story of the New York City pizza owner who handed out coupons to teenagers and said, go drive the most pizza sales. And at the end of the day, he looked at the names on the back to see who drove the most sales. And there was a faraway winner. And he said, how did you drive the most pizza sales? And the kid said, easy. I stood at the front door and handed them to people walking in. So there's a lot of advertising that coupons at the front door.
Spend all your money on that guy. Give him a big bonus.
Exactly. They're like everyone gets that and it's intuitive and laughs, but I promise you, there's billions of marketing dollars that are being decisioned based on the teenager with the coupon.
This is because people have trouble measuring. And when you have trouble measuring, then you can't
Exactly.
justify. And when you
Bingo.
can't justify, then you can't tell the CFO, this is why we need that much more money or anything like that. So that is a challenge. Chris, this has been a ton of fun. There's a lot of stuff here. Everything is more complex than we think it is, right? I mean, last click has a place. It tells you something. But assistive clicks and other views and other things like that have a lot of place as well, and other factors as well, including incrementality and media mix modeling, other things like that. Chris, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and have yourself a wonderful.
Thanks for having me on. This is great.